From conquering the world of high fashion to meeting the man who would change the course of her life, Melania Trump offering a rare glimpse as First Lady and much more. It's all in her brand new self-titled memoir called Melania, which you can get a copy of at melaniatrump.com. And Melania Trump joins us now to talk about it. I read this entire thing cover to cover last night, and you tell the people about riding in the limousine with Michelle Obama on Inauguration Day. You talk about some of your battles with the press. What was something you put in this book that you've been wanting to get off your chest for all of these years that people really need to see?
Well, everything.
Everything.
Everything. I think it's a lot of misinformation out there about me. So that's why I said that I think it's the time that people hear from me and my story, my perspective, and the truth.
We're about the truth on this show. Judge Jeanine, do you have a question? You've been very excited about this interview today.
I have so many questions, but I'll start with one that is clearly serious. The former president has survived 2 assassination attempts. And Kamala's camp has just issued yesterday that they're going to go more negative. The Biden-Harris team continues with the negative rhetoric, whether it's Hitler or, he's tearing down democracy. Are you worried about your husband's safety in the next 29 days?
Of course I do. Yes, I do. I think, when they call him, he's a threat to democracy, let's ask ourselves, who is really a threat to democracy? They are ongoing with the lawfare against the former president, as well as, trying to get him off the voting ballots and trying to, silence him. So, yes, of course, I was always afraid what can happen, and that they continuing with that kind of language is just, it's a toxic atmosphere.
Jessica Tarlov, Harold Ford Jr., do you have a question for the former First Lady?
I do. First of all, great to see you, and we're so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
When you think about some of the positive things that you experienced in the White House when you and President Trump were there, what were some of the things that made you most joyful about policy and the things that he did?
Well, he did a lot, and he took care of the military, and I really loved visiting them, actually all around the world, even when I went to in Iraq for Christmas, when I went to Walter Reed and visiting the soldiers, wounded soldiers, and also when I visited the aircraft on the middle of the ocean. So very exciting, and all the people that I met over 4 years, really, really special, and they always, they stay with you. Sometimes you still remember them. So it's always something that I'm looking forward to it.
When Dana went to Iraq, she had a black eye. I'm very glad that didn't happen to you.
I'm the only one who got hurt in that whole thing. That's true, but I recovered. In the book, you do talk about the power of the office of the First Lady to do good. And I think from afar, what I witnessed was that you seemed very joyful when you were, certainly around the military, but also when you were around children. And I remember early on, you went and you read to children, and it was a special moment. And I'm wondering if former President Trump wins again, I know that foster care is an issue that you care about, and it's a system that is broken. And there's a lot of organizations that help, like Selfless Love out of Florida and Texas. They're amazing. But a push from the White House could really help. Is there an issue like that or anything else that you kind of wish that you had another chance to work on?
Well, I will bring my experiences back, what I learned in the 4 years. And as well, I will continue my Be Best initiative.
You're right.
For children, for women, and also I will continue with Fostering the Future, the initiative that I established after I left the White House in 2021. And I have 2 platforms, melaniatrump.com and usmemorabilia.com, that support scholarships for fostering children and fostering community. I have many students now in. So I will continue with that. And we need to give back to those children and support them. So once they have education, they could have a great job, and after that, they could give back to communities.
Greg Gutfeld,
Oh, I love the cover.
because it's black.
It's black. Like you, I was a model. And do you ever, yeah, some magazines you probably never heard of, but they're out of business now.
Yeah.
Do you ever stop and think about your life and wonder, how did you get here? Like, you came to the United States in '96, you arrived at JFK, and then you end up in the White House. And obviously you didn't expect it, but do you ever, does it ever kind of have these moments where, how did I get here?
Yeah, it's incredible journey, incredible story. Where I came from, small town in Slovenia, and then went to Milan, Paris, New York. And, you never know what can happen in life, right? We don't know the future. We don't know what will happen next year. So, here we are.
Would you have married Donald Trump if you had a crystal ball that said he would be president?
That's a interesting question.
By the way, does he ever sleep?
He doesn't sleep much. He does, of course.
Does he wear
needs to.
pajamas?
No.
No. What does he wear when he sleeps, Melania?
Well, one of the things she does get into in the book, Greg, since I've read it and you haven't, obviously, the first date.
Yes.
And how he courted you, and that courtship was very special. These are just many of the things you reveal in the book. What are those moments when Greg alluded to it? Where am I? How am I here? You were in the Situation Room during the al-Baghdadi raid.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty intense.
It was amazing to experience that kind of action, really, and soldiers, they were so brave and interesting. I didn't put in the book, actually, but it's after that, in few months, I met those pilots in North Carolina that they flew over. So they explained to me what they need to do, how they need to prepare. They cannot tell anybody. They go and they're called to duty, and right away they go on the flight and they tell them where they need to go. So very interesting story, yes. But I was there, and my husband, he called me and he said, he wants that I see it, and it was incredible what they did.
Did you get to meet the dog too?
Conan.
I did.
did?
Conan,
Yes.
yes.
And you were there too. Yes.
You met Conan too.
Yes, it's on the back of one of my books.
And you were so brave. You went right there
And
to
I
him, and
pulled up.
she would start,
Yeah.
It's amazing. You were so brave with him.
Yeah, I think the dog was scared of Janine.
Yeah, probably. Actually, it was Laura and I. We kept calling the president and said, "Please, can you bring Conan in?" But it was fun. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Or okay, there are a lot of women who are on the fence. Not a lot, a few. What would you say to them regarding why Donald Trump should be president?
Well, we could see in the 4 years that he was there, country was in great shape. Country was safe, country was prosperous, and he will bring that back.
Yes.
When you are hopefully First Lady again,
Yes.
will you continue with the Be Best initiative? I know that was near and dear to your heart in those 4 years.
I will do that. And also, we need to see what will happen in few months and what next year will bring, and new issues will come, right? So you need to tackle those issues, and you need to...
Well, and
yes.
one of them is that what we have seen, there's an increase in crime against women. And that's been happening in all of the stories that we talk about when you have an illegal migrant crime. It's not just women, but there is a particular attack against women that's happening, and I'm not necessarily asking, that just came to me. I didn't plan on asking you about that, but it does seem to me like you don't know what the issues are going to be. North Carolina has to be rebuilt. Tennessee has to be rebuilt. There's so many things that
Now
are need to be
Florida
done.
is coming, right?
Yes.
The big hurricane in
Yes.
Florida.
Yes.
I'm glad that many people, they move.
leaving.
They're leaving. They move away, so they will be safe.
Quick light question: How's Barron doing at NYU?
He's doing great. He loves his classes and his professors. He's doing well. He's thriving, and he's enjoying to be in New York City again.
Melania, is there something you would want people to know about your husband that they probably don't know that they should know? Something that they would be, oh, that's, that's pretty good. Like something.
Well, I have some stories, and Jesse, you read it in the book, so they're kind of, cute, nice stories. And he's very warm, he's fun, he has a great personality. And all he wants, he's very passionate about this country. All he wants to make this country safe, so everybody has jobs and enjoying family life. And, he's treating everybody equal. He doesn't, man or woman. He could be tough on a woman. He could be tough on a man. We experienced that.
We've seen that. We've seen that.
Does
very
he make
closely.
you laugh?
Yeah. Yes, he does, of course. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the key.
He is. He is.
All right. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much, Melania, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck with the
Thank
book.
you.
Thank
Melania,
you,
everyone.
there it is, where books are sold, or you go to your website. What was the website again?
MelaniaTrump.com.
That's easy to remember.
Yes.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.